Harold was your average Joe who made his way through life just by working hard. After studying hard, he got a job at a famous company on his first attempt, and everything was going smoothly. However, one day, he lost both his parents in an accident, and from then on, he began his darkest phase. Isn't that the first condition to be a shounen anime protagonist? He lived like an addict for 4 years after the accident, but finally managed to gather himself back together and got a job at a small game development company. It has been 1 year since he got that job, and RMC is barely holding it together. He has no proper ventilation in his room, and he is so broke that he can't fix his AC either. One day, as he is sitting in the hot and humid atmosphere, he decides to open his window to let some fresh air in. Just as he does that, he gets the greatest surprise of his life. A dimensional gate opens up where his balcony should have been. Harold immediately checks the net for any supernatural occurrences in his city, but finds that nothing is happening. This is the first time he has heard of any such thing happening outside manga and anime, so Harold doesn't know what to do. But he knows that this is a really great chance for him to see another world and maybe get rich by bringing magical items to this world and selling them. Bro has read too many mangas. He decides to experiment with the gate and tries to send a book through it. That doesn't work, and he wonders if he can ever return from the other world. However, he throws caution to the wind and steps into the portal. As soon as he opens his eyes, Harold finds himself in a clean and spacious room, and the only thing he brought along with him were his clothes. After that, he realizes that he is in a completely rural place right now. The weeb inside him awakens, and he tries summoning his system, but nothing happens. Harold realizes that he has not achieved any superpower by coming here, but at least he is in a pristine location that seems to be glimmering in the night light. He finds the dimensional gate contract on a table, which tells him about the details of using the gate. Harold can pass through the gate as he pleases, and he can open the gate at 2 new locations in each world too. Also, if he wants to carry things from one world to another, he must use a special bag called the subspace pocket, which is like Doraemon's pocket. He can bring anything from his world into the bag, but the only thing he can take back is gold. At last, Harold reads the final condition, which tells him that, for a start, he is getting 1,000 gold coins, which is equal to 100 million Korean won. He is shocked, but then realizes that even with so much money, he cannot buy a house in Seoul because of the damn inflation. Harold also learns that the moment he signs this contract, he will learn the language of this place, which is called the Ermin Empire. He is given 7 days to make his mind about the contract, but he doesn't need that at all. He puts his hand over the contract, which is turned into dust the moment it is completed. Harold is shocked and then finds that he has successfully learned the language of the Ermin Empire. Also, since the life expectancy in this world is low, his age has been reduced to 23. Harold thinks that he might be able to do grand things other people do when they get isekai'd. But more than anything, he wants to live each day being happy. Harold then goes back home to test if his subspace storage works. The gold he takes along turns into money, and as he thinks about heading back to the other world, he finds himself quite tired and falls asleep. The next day, he brings some essentials to the other world, including a mirror to see if he really looks young. Harold feels that he has gotten much younger and more handsome at no cost and saved the money Koreans spend on plastic surgery. He then finds out that his phone doesn't work in the other world, so he decides to use this place for his digital detox. He then wears some clothes suited for this world and opens the window to see the place once again. He finds that it really is the countryside, but he likes the view. Just then, he sees a poker-faced village lady cleaning her house, and he freezes like a deer in headlights. She asks him who the hell he is, and he introduces himself as an adventurer. She asks him when he moved into the house and if he has asked the village chief for permission. Harold gives her some excuses about talking later, so the woman invites him over for lunch, albeit too coldly. He goes to the inn she runs and finds that it is a really simple place. The lady gives him some vegetable soup, and Harold can tell from its looks that it is delicious. Before he can eat, he asks the woman her name, and she introduces herself as Melody. After some small talk, Harold decides to check the soup and bread combo. He recalls the days when he used to eat delicious street food like that and then dips the bread in the soup before taking a bite. Harold feels that the food is really delicious, even though it is a bit simple. He can tell that the bread is a bit hard, but the corn soup is the star of the show. However, he feels it needs a bit of seasoning in the soup, like black pepper powder. He asks Melody if she has some pepper, and she is angry that he doesn't like the taste of her cooking. Harold tells her that in his home, everyone uses black pepper because it is quite cheap, and Melody replies that here only nobles can afford it. Harold realizes that Melody seems to have some problem with black pepper, so he praises her food, saying it is the best thing he has eaten in a long time. Melody is quite happy to hear that, and she goes to do some embroidery while her guest eats. Harold then asks her to share the recipe with him, and after a while of thinking, she asks him to follow her. She leads him outside, and the fresh air mesmerizes Harold as he goes to Melody's outdoor kitchen. On the way, he learns that the village is called Raudoren. After that, she shows him the recipe that starts with melting the butter first, and then frying the chopped onions until they become brown and sweet. Melody says that she got some corn from a passing merchant, but since it is a new crop, they might not get it again soon. She uses corn powder and fries it with onions before adding milk and water to create a creamy soup. To finish it, she adds a pinch of salt, and Harold can't believe that the recipe is so simple that even he can make it. Melody takes the cooked soup and leaves it to cool down since it is going to be her lunch. Harold wants to thank her for inviting him over and showing him the recipe, so he gifts her the mirror he brought from his home. Melody is amazed because she has never seen such a clear mirror and thinks that the gift is too expensive for her. She refuses to take it and pushes Harold out of her house. He asks her if there is a library in the town, and Melody tells him that everything important is on the central plaza. While Harold is worried because of Melody's reaction, he decides to visit the library first. On the way, he sees a blonde girl with red eyes and pointed ears staring at him out of her window, but she runs away just as she is spotted. Harold soon reaches the central plaza and moves to the library, where he finds a cheerful, muscular man eating some snacks. Harold wonders why a gym bro like him works as a librarian. But more than that, he is curious about his snacks. As he approaches the librarian, Harold realizes that he doubles as the guard because books seem to be rare in this world. He asks him about a map of the Ermin Empire, and the gym bro tells him to wait as he brings out the map. He refuses to let Harold borrow the map since he is an outsider, and nervously watches over him as he flicks open the old map. The map is just the outline of the continent in the sea, and the gym bro tells Harold that in the Ermin Empire, it is illegal to point cities or villages on maps because there is a risk of war. Only the royals and military can have a detailed map. Harold is nervous as he hears about the war because he does not want to relive the hell of serving in the army, like his mandated service in Korea. The buff librarian assures him that wars are not so common because a great wizarding family is protecting the empire right now, so no one will attack them. After that, the buff man introduces himself as Jake, who is in charge of all things that require strength in this village. He is really excited to see a young man near his age and wants to be friends. He is surprised to learn that Harold is 23 when he looks much younger, and the exact opposite happens when he reveals that he is only 17. Harold is shocked to learn this because he thought Jake would have a son who is 17 years old, but still he becomes friends with him. After that, he asks him about the snacks and learns that they are simply flatbread with raspberries on top. Jake offers Harold one biscuit, and he finds that it is nothing special. Harold then asks about the important cities of the empire, and Jake points out the location of their village, the nearest port town called Pusing, and the capital city on the map. He nervously laughs, saying that he has never been to the capital but has heard about it from the merchants that often visit the village. As Harold is thinking about the time it will take him to reach the capital, someone loudly announces that the merchants are here. Jake immediately tells Harold to come again tomorrow because he is going to the merchants right now. Harold decides to join him, but as he is busy admiring the rural village, Jake is already rushing to the town hall along with Melody. Harold thinks that he should also see the merchants and goes to his house to bring some money, but ends up going to the modern world because he needs a shower. He cannot bring anything from the other world back to his own, so he loses his clothes on the way, but thankfully, his subspace pocket is still with him. After he takes a shower, he returns to the fantasy world and takes 2 gold coins as he goes to see the merchants. He first goes to Melody's inn and finds that it is bustling with customers. She tells him to wait at a table if he wants to eat and gives him a pint of beer to pass time with. Harold takes a quick sip of the beer and finds that it tastes savory and fruity. He likes it, but then Melody tells him to wait and gives him a judgmental stare, like she is his mom and he didn't finish his veggies. She tells him that he has to pay 1 silver and 5 copper coins up front for eating at her inn. Harold realizes his mistake and gives her a gold coin, and she soon brings change to him. From there, Harold finds out that 1 gold coin is equal to 10 silver coins, and converting it to Korean currency, he thinks that the bear is quite expensive. However, Melody calls him an idiot when he says that because she charged him for the drinks and the food together. Harold is relieved, enjoys his beer in peace, and then thinks that he should talk to some strangers. Just then, Jake arrives there because he is also having dinner here with his family. He refuses Harold's invitation to dine together since, in Raudoren, spending mealtime with family is important. Soon, Melody brings Harold some pork stew and rye bread, but Jake is still around to pester him about the details of the meat. After he leaves, Harold finally tastes the stew in peace and finds that it is very delicious and well balanced. It reminds him of the food his mom used to make and how she used to make it less spicy, but more delicious. He remembers how he used to watch his mom cook and finishes the food, thinking about her. After he finishes eating, Harold joins Jake to visit the merchants, and he finds that they sell all kinds of things. He finds Melody checking a mirror there and sees her haggling over a low-quality mirror worth 8 silver coins. Harold thinks that the one he gave Melody earlier was better than this, and on top of that, it was free. He does some mental math and finds that he can become a millionaire in this world if he only sells 3 mirrors each day for a year. Meanwhile, Melody goes with a cheaper mirror worth 3 silver coins, since the other mirror was expensive because a wizard made it. After that, Harold goes to a spice merchant and makes small talk while asking about the price of spices. He learns that each pound of black pepper costs 6 gold coins, sugar costs 1 gold coin, and salt costs only 2 copper coins. Harold once again does some mental math and finds that 1 kilo of black pepper will be worth 1.2 million won. He is putting his Asian superpowers to good use. Harold sees a chance to get rich quickly in this and asks the merchant if the price is the same everywhere. He realizes that the merchants are charging the people here more than normal because they see them as innocent villagers. However, he doesn't really care about that part. All he wants is to establish a trade route in this world, which can make him the richest man in the empire, and he will finally be able to quit his job and throw a shoe in his horrible manager's face. Harold asks the merchant about the price he paid for the black pepper, and he coaxes him by revealing that black pepper is cheaper where he comes from. He learns that while many people can afford the spices, the royals and nobles sweep them off as soon as they enter the market. On top of that, a ship containing spices sank recently, so the merchants are a bit short on the supply. He asks Harold to sell all his black pepper to him, but since he has nothing right now, he gives him a card. Harold learns that the name of the merchant is Colin, and he has a shop in the central market of the capital city. After that, Harold wanders around and comes across a kid sitting by himself. He goes to talk to him and finds that the kid is really cheeky. He is rude, and he calls Harold a liar when he reveals that he is from Korea. He claims that he has read hundreds of books and never heard about a place called Korea. Harold decides to pull a fast one on him and says that he has been an adventurer for 23 years, and there are still things he doesn't know despite reading thousands of books. The boy is taken aback to hear this and introduces himself as Mino, the son of the general merchandiser. Harold then asks him to evaluate the mirror he has, and the boy is surprised because the mirror is worth 3 gold coins. He claims that with this quality, it must have been made with magic, but there is no seal proving that a registered wizard made it. Mino says that unbranded items like these cannot be sold officially, but they are very popular at black market auctions, and even the royal family visits them. Harold asks Mino about the wizarding family next, but he nervously changes the topic back to the mirror. Harold tells him to have it, and the boy immediately enters merchant mode as he asks him the conditions for this favor. Harold asks him about the major villages and towns nearby and learns that apart from the port town of Pusing, there is a big village called Luchin that is 2 hours away. However, the people there are greedy. Mino says he likes Raudoren a lot because people are nice here, and they also sell good quality hay. Also, the food made by Melody is something no one can miss. Harold then asks him about the capital city, and Mino replies that it is a good place to live, but the houses are really expensive there. He talks about many more things and then gives Harold his card, asking him to visit his house and shop if he is ever in the capital. Mino wants him to work for their store since he seems smart and well-to-do, and he remarks that he would be popular with girls too. With that, Mino leaves, telling Harold that if he has more mirrors of this quality, they can make a deal, and he will sell them for a good price at the auctions. Later, Harold returns to the modern world, where he is bothered by the hot weather. He thinks that living peacefully in Raudoren, selling mirrors and spices, is better than living there, but at least the modern world has ice cream. Harold enjoys some frozen desserts, and their taste motivates him to quit his job. Wait, how did he connect those two things? Harold quickly checks the online shopping sites to find the best price for black pepper and finds that he can get 1 kilogram of pepper for just 10,000 won. He thinks about selling it for 2 gold coins per pound and calculates that he will earn 4 million won for 10 kilograms of black pepper. This motivates Harold to quit his job the very next day. He goes to his office, where his manager talks trash to him when he is the one at fault. He tells him to stop copying codes from open source software and asks him to develop something original. Harold thinks that a developer's ability is proportional to his copy-paste skills, but seeing him zoned out, his manager throws a file at his face. He even brings his dead parents into it, asking Harold if he is going to use them as an excuse for his bad performance. That was the last straw, and Harold went straight to the CEO to give his resignation. The CEO knows that it is because of the idiot manager, but he cannot do much except scold him because they are already short on manpower. The CEO understands that Harold feels things more deeply since he has only recently recovered from the shock of his parents' deaths. He also lost his daughter in an accident many years ago, so he has sympathy for him and tells Harold to hand over his roles to other employees. They both wish each other the best of luck, and Harold goes back to his home. Soon, all his groceries arrive, and he places them all in the subspace storage and leaves for the fantasy world. He thinks that with the current savings he has, he can chill for an entire year, but he is going to try his best to change his approach and be successful in the other world. He hides the black pepper he brought under the bed, and then goes straight to Melody's shop. He gives her a pack of barley flour, apricot seed flour, and honey, using which he wants to create an exfoliating mask. Rather, let her cook with those things, she will make something delicious. Melody is appalled by the idea, but Harold assures her that the women in his country take care of skin this way, so she agrees to see it out. She becomes the mask, and after washing her face, she thanks Harold for the gift. Would black pepper have been a much better gift for the lady? Harold then returns to his house to relax, thinking about how difficult it is to greet neighbors in his city, while here it is natural. Just then, Jake knocks on his door and invites Harold to join him in harvesting some buds to make the beer. He is curious about how long Harold is going to stay in the village, because he wants him to stay for a long time since the village needs as much manpower as it can get. Jake complains that he has a lot of work to do, from harvesting crops to feeding animals, and from making beer to grinding grains. Harold just ignores his whining and asks him about the blonde girl who lives next door, but Jake tells her that no one fitting that description lives in the village. Our MC freaks out as he thinks that he saw a ghost. Jake then explains that there is only one girl in the village, and she is quite odd. She lives with her mother, and neither of them interact with the villagers much. However, they do all that is expected of them because everyone living in the village must work. Harold realizes that this is the reason why Jake wants him to help collect buds and decides to help him out. They reach the orchard, and Jake tells Harold to pick the mature but still green buds. The buds smell great, and Harold helps his friend collect them. After that, he returns to the modern world for a shower because he hates being sweaty. He lays on his bed after a shower, looking like a thirst trap for girls. Harold then thinks that he should take some food from this world to the other to enjoy with the beer, but he needs to think a lot about a thing that won't cause any suspicions there. Harold immediately orders food online and puts it in his subspace pocket as he heads back to Raudoren, determined to show the villagers the taste of Korea. However, just as he reaches the fantasy world, he realizes that he doesn't have any cutlery to eat food with, so he goes back and brings some old wooden utensils that won't seem suspicious here. Soon, Jake comes there, and as he enters the door, he finds Harold wearing just his underwear. After some weird tension between the two men, Jake tells Harold that since he was not here, he did his share of work too. Harold thanks him and promises to help the next time around. After that, Jake asks him to come over for dinner, and Harold hesitates because of the food he has brought but decides to accept his invitation. However, when he reveals that he has cooked some food that he wanted to share with Melody, Jake suggests that they eat at her place. Harold takes the roasted chicken soup he had ordered to Melody's inn, where the village chief is also present. Melody is quite confused about the food, but as Harold insists, everyone takes a bite. The taste of modern cooking is too great for them to bear, and the village chief faints because the food was too delicious. Jake says that this dish changed his whole life around, and Melody is curious about the spices used in it. After that, Harold decides to visit his merchant friend to sell some black pepper, but on the way, he sees a noblewoman riding a horse. He is amazed by her beauty and then notices her guards wearing chainmail. The woman suddenly looks towards Harold, and her eyes gleam as she calls him my love. What kind of riz is this? Harold is blown away by her words and thinks he is going to get lucky today. However, that was just a big misunderstanding, as the girl runs past him and hugs Melody instead. The woman called Veronica Meredith is the daughter of a rich noble, and she is a huge lover of Melody's cooking, so much so that she often sneaks out of her house just to eat at her place. She wants Melody to come and work under her, but the old lady tells her that she lives to live her life freely, Otherwise, she can easily defeat the royal chef in a cook-off. That's the level of confidence I need. As Veronica gives her the ingredients she has brought, Melody gives up and tells the girl to wash her hands while she starts cooking. Jake tells Harold about Veronica, who is quite pretty but equally bad-tempered as well. Just as he says this, she appears behind him and freaks him out. She doesn't really mind the rumor about her bad temper, and then she turns towards Harold. Harold introduces himself as an adventurer from Korea, and Veronica bombards him with questions about his family and wealth. Before she can pester him anymore, one of her guards comes and carries her away. But even then, Veronica completes her introduction. Harold is astonished by the strong-spirited girl, and then teases Jake since he seems to like her. Soon, a man named Joseph comes there, and he sits down for a drink along with Harold. They introduce themselves, and Joseph turns out to be one of the biggest spice merchants in the capital city. After hearing about Colin, Joseph remarks that this time he could not get any black pepper because Veronica's family, the Meredith family, bought it all before anyone else. He complains that the Meredith family is excessively fond of pepper, but Harold doesn't think so because earlier Veronica wanted Melody not to use pepper in her food. Joseph knows that too, and he tells Harold about a disastrous incident that happened in the port town of Pusing because of Veronica's dislike for black pepper. She tried to set fire to a carriage containing black pepper, and Harold is shocked to hear it. Just then, Veronica pops there, and she is furious that people are talking behind her back. Joseph is quick to take action and invites her to sit with them, and Veronica gulps down Harold's beer. When he reminds her about that, she asks if he wants her to puke it out, and he can't say anything in response. Then, Veronica again asks him about his family and wealth, because she thinks he is a distinguished man from somewhere. This girl is really crazy. Harold tells her things like how everyone in Korea can attend an academy, and Veronica wants to run away to Korea because she wants to study too. Just then, Melody comes with the food, saying that it took her some time because she had never seen the ingredients before. Veronica is amazed by the dishes that Melody cooked and says that it is her first time seeing these ingredients used like this. Harold also takes a bite and then asks Veronica how she got clams so far from the sea. She replies that she asked some wizards to do it, and Harold realizes that Veronica isn't fond of wizards. After eating his fill, Harold decides to finally go and sell some black pepper. He visits Joseph's room and tells him that he has about 20 pounds of black pepper. The merchant can't believe his eyes and immediately offers to buy everything at the rate of 3 gold coins per pound. And Harold realizes that he just earned 6 million won in one transaction. As Harold receives the payment, he asks Joseph if it wasn't risky bringing so much cash along, and he replies that they usually hire mercenaries as guards, but this time, they came together with Veronica's crew, so there was no need to worry. The next day, Harold wakes up, and his attitude has already become like that of a rich man. He decides to live his life carefree now, but he still has no idea how much money he should spend in 1 month. He then goes to the market again and buys some candles, when he spots a pretty girl asking the fisherman if he has some fresh mackerel. The fisherman replies that it is a rare fish, and catching it requires magic, so they catch it only on order. On top of that, he asks the girl to pay 5 silver coins in advance for the fish, so she decides to change her order. As she goes home to bring a container, Harold realizes that she is not blonde, and he might not have paid attention the last time he saw her. Later, Harold hears Veronica calling his name, and she wants to go on a walk with him. While he initially gets creepy vibes from her, he takes her offer. Veronica reveals that she could smell black pepper on Joseph this morning and learned that Harold sold it to him. He admits to doing that, and Veronica complains, asking why people like that spice so much. Harold feels that she might be fed up with it, but he can never get enough of the pepper's taste. Veronica shouts at him that she hates it, and even its smell makes her sick. She then apologizes to him for getting carried away and tells him that she has been on her edge lately. The reason behind that is her marriage. Veronica says that while she wants to inherit the family business, her father won't allow it, and he has already set up her marriage with a wizard. She says that wizards are descendants of elves, and people literally worship them. Veronica does not like that her father is trying to marry her to a wizard to increase the prestige of his family. She asks Harold to take her to his continent and offers him 5,000 gold coins for that. However, he refuses, saying that she won't be able to live alone. He tells her about how he was alone and depressed after his parents' deaths, and Veronica says that while her parents have been good to her, they really don't care about her likes or dislikes and only want her to live up to their standards. With that, she leaves, telling Harold to visit her home someday and, if possible, kidnap Melody on the way. Later, Harold goes to the village chief and apologizes for coming to meet him so late. The chief doesn't mind him and casually permits him to live in the village. As he is leaving the old man, Harold spots a couple getting out of a carriage while nervously looking around. As he wonders what is going on, Melody comes there, screaming loudly. It turns out that the young couple are actually her son and his wife, and they are here to surprise Melody with a grandson. While she is initially angry at them for keeping it a secret from her, she quickly gets over it as she looks at her grandson's face. Later, Jake visits Harold's home because he wants to see the baby. Both the men are smitten by the baby's cuteness, but even during the heartwarming moment, Jake has many things on his mind. He tells Harold that a noble is trying to buy the village, but they decide to postpone talking about it because the smile of the baby is more precious. Later, Harold asks Jake to elaborate, and he says that a noble is trying to buy their village. He claims that it is not good news but says that Harold doesn't have to bother with it since he is an outsider. He wanted to give him some gifts in case they never saw each other again. Jake takes out some novels from God knows where and gives them to Harold so that he can learn more about this place. Soon, Harold returns to the modern world. He wonders what he should take with him this time when he remembers that the girl wanted a mackerel. So, being a simp, he goes to the night market. There is another reason for going to the night market, and that is all the delicious food being served at night. Harold eats a lot and then takes a walk until he reaches a fisherman. He takes a moment to admire the variety of fish and then buys some mackerel. He decides to cook some fish for himself too, and for that, he decides to make a spicy mayo sauce to go along with the fish. Harold acts like a Salt B ripoff and finishes his sauce. He takes the sauce, the fish, and a cabbage to the other world, where he is yet again reminded of his mom's cooking. After that, he goes to the neighbor's place and introduces himself to the woman named Masa. He says that they have not gotten to know each other yet, so he wanted to treat her family to a meal. Just then, Masa's daughter Helena comes there, and her eyes sparkle at the thought of a free meal. Harold explains that he saw Helena looking for mackerel in the market, so he bought some when he went to the neighboring village. He invites the mother and daughter to his backyard, where he grills some juicy-looking fish and serves it with steamed cabbage and spicy sauce. He tells the women to wrap the fish and sauce in a cabbage leaf to eat it, and they remark that he has talent for cooking. Harold takes a bite too, and he can feel the freshness of the ocean in the fish. Masa says that the bones of fish are also quite delicious, but Helena scolds her for saying something so weird. Harold realizes that they are not your usual mother and daughter, but he decides to focus on the food instead of them. After they are done eating, Helena helps Harold wash the dishes, while Masa thanks him for the food and promises to treat him in return someday. A month has passed since Harold first entered the other world, and he has started to get tired of helping Jake with the numerous chores. Just as he is thinking about that, Jake is at his door, but today he is not here for work. He wants to take Harold along with him to the place called Luchin Village, and Harold is more than happy to accept his offer. However, his excitement vanishes as he realizes that he has carriage sickness, and he barfs after reaching their destination. Jake tells Harold that he has to meet someone, so he leaves alone before saying that he will be back in this spot within an hour. Harold also decides to splurge on some of his gold coins in the meantime. First, he goes to a fabric merchant and finds a soft cloth that is very popular with nobles. He finds that it costs 1 gold per meter and buys 2 meters of the cloth. He tells the shopkeeper that he plans to make diapers using these, which comes across as a shock to him. After that, Harold goes to see the city and spots a guard with a cool-looking sword. As the guard glances back at him, Harold flinches, but that is just warm-up, because he is frozen stiff as he notices Veronica passing through. She tells Harold that she came here to observe the noble who is planning to buy this region because they can soon be her neighbors. After that, she asks him about the clothes, and he replies that he wants to create diapers out of them and gift them to Melody's grandson. Veronica is fired up upon hearing the news, and she declares that she won't sit idly either. She takes Harold to a special shop and shows him a recent product on the market called soap. While Harold wants to laugh at it, he just says it is quite impressive. Veronica flaunts her gifts, including the soap and baby lotion, saying that she wants to give more, but Melody simply won't accept it. She then asks Harold to congratulate Melody on her behalf, and he asks her to tell him if she finds any news about the noble buying the village. Veronica gets tense as the topic is brought up and says that she must take Melody out of Raudoren before that happens. She asks Harold if he thinks that she is obsessed with Melody, and she decides to show him the reason for it. She orders the special meal at the restaurant, which is reserved only for nobles. She tells Harold to try the food, which barely looks like food, and he realizes why Gordon Ramsay is so angry most of the time. On his way back home, the damage from carriage sickness worsens his condition. Harold realizes why Veronica rates Melody so highly and thinks that she should never leave the village of Raudoren. Soon, he returns to the modern world and immediately runs to the fridge to get some chilled juice to improve his mood. After he feels better, he goes to his computer again and wonders what he should order now. He feels that selling black pepper in the parallel world is not enough, and then he gets an idea about his next product. This time, he doesn't plan to simply sell things but rather grow them himself, so no one is suspicious. As he is working in his field, Jake comes there and asks him what he is doing. Harold explains that he is planting a potato crop, which is not found in this area. He reminds Jake that it was the vegetable that Veronica had brought with her the last time and says that it is easy to make, tasty, versatile, and nutritious. Jake is intrigued and asks Harold to invite him over once his potatoes are ready to harvest. Jake is happy, and then he reveals that the merchants are back in the village. Harold goes to see them and finds his friend there. Nino tells him that the mirror he gave him last time sold for 5 gold coins, and he buys the remaining stock he has. After that, he goes to Melody's inn, where Jake gives him a piece of dried meat. While Harold is excited to try it out, he finds that it is saltier than the Dead Sea because there is no other way for the villagers to preserve it. Melody scolds them for fooling around as she brings Harold's order of sausage soup and bread. However, as he is sitting down to eat, he sees the happy faces of people eating with their families, and that makes him sad. But then Jake invites him to eat with his family, and Harold cheers up. He joins their table and starts enjoying his food. Harold then starts talking about Masa and Helena and learns that Masa has not been feeling well lately. He then takes some food for his neighbors when he hears Helena shouting at her mother to go to a big city and seek medical help. Harold feels nervous as Helena slams the door open and storms out of her house, and Masa comes out, calling her name. She looks really sick, and Harold tells her to eat some warm food to feel better. Masa wants to eat when Helena comes back, and then she tells Harold that the girl is not her real daughter. She replies that she is just her nanny, who has been looking after her for many years. Harold realizes that is why Helena has a bad attitude towards Masa, but she defends her, saying that she is not a bad girl. She explains that Helena has a lot of talent, and she wants to use it to earn a lot of money to get treated in a big city. However, Masa is against the idea. She still wants to look after the girl, and she asks Harold to help Helena settle down after her death. Once again, Harold is reminded of his dead parents upon hearing those words, and he can only say that he will try. Masa replies that his honest reply makes her feel better. Later, Harold leaves her home, thinking that he is not so nice that he can take all responsibility for Helena, not when he thinks that their personalities are incompatible. However, he knows what it is like to lose one's parents, so he wants to help her. In the afternoon, Harold goes to meet with Mino and gives him 5 more mirrors to sell. Mino tells him that the mirrors will definitely sell for more since rumors about the previous mirror are spreading. He gives Harold 3 gold coins per mirror and promises to give more depending on how well they sell. Harold then asks him if he can sell soap too, but Mino replies that it is not as popular as mirrors. After that, the boy suddenly asks him if he is a noble or a commoner, because he smells like the former. Mino reveals that commoners in the Empire cannot take a bath regularly since water is scarce, and most of the time they rely on the public baths run by wizarding families. On learning that wizards use their power to gather water, Harold realizes that the country is royally messed up without magic. Little does he know that his hot-tempered neighbor Helena is an elf, the race naturally born with magic. As she looks over at Masa, taking her last breath, she thanks her for protecting her for 30 years. With that, the ill woman dies. Helena doesn't cry at her funeral, and when Harold brings some food to her, he finds that she doesn't answer the door at all. Later, he goes to the modern world and visits a bakery. He remembers how his mom used to love sweet bread, and the family always shared a laugh whenever they ate the bread. So he buys some and brings them to the other world. However, as he is about to enjoy his breakfast, he sees a package on his table and realizes that it is the gift he wanted to give Melody. Harold panics and immediately visits Melody's home to give her the gift of getting a grandchild. She thanks him and says that he is so considerate, while the men in her family are a bunch of lazy animals. With that, he leaves to check up on his potato farm. However, he finds Helena enjoying a walk in the field and offers her a potato flower. Does he seriously not notice her pointy ears? Helena doesn't like that he plucked a flower for no reason, and Harold explains that he needs to pluck them to ensure that the potatoes grow well. She doesn't even know what potatoes are, and she is not even interested when he tries to explain. Harold then notices that Helena has gotten too skinny because she has not been eating well lately, so he asks her if she likes sweet bread. She loves them, and as Harold offers to share some with her, she runs to his home. As she nibbles the bread with milk, Harold finally notices her silver hair and pointed ears, realizing that she is an elf. He is slower than a snail and about as dumb, too. Helena admits that she is an elf and tells Harold not to reveal her secret to anyone. But more importantly, she doesn't want him to bother her while she eats. After she is finished with the food, she claims that Harold is no ordinary man either. She thinks he is different, and while Harold thinks that she has found out that he is an otherworlder, the girl thinks that he is a wizard, specifically the Wizard of Bread. Harold is dumbfounded as Helena praises the soft, sweet, and tasty bread, saying that he couldn't have made it so well if he was not a wizard. She declares that since he gave her delicious bread, she will help him with the potato flowers. She also wants to repay him for the mackerel, and Harold says that's fine. He wants to know what kind of magic she uses, but her mood immediately flips as she says that she won't tell him anything for free. She demands Harold give her bread if he wants to know her secret, and he decides to bake some for her. He wants to go above and beyond, so he prepares some batter for a pound cake and puts it outside to cook. Just then, Helena comes to him and tells him to get the bread ready soon. He asks her about her magic, and she finally reveals that she can control water. However, when asked to show it, she demands 10 loaves of tasty bread in exchange for that. He soon finishes cooking the cake, with Helena pestering him, and serves it to her. Even though it is far from perfect, she finds it delicious. However, her attitude is still as bad as ever. She asks Harold why he lives alone, and he replies that it is because his parents are dead. Helena replies that it is better for nosy parents to die early, and our MC is almost ready to throw hands. He realizes that she is a total psychopath and tells her to leave, but she tells him that he is a good person. Later, Harold lies in his bed, thinking about how weird Helena is. That night, a band of robbers attacked the Luchan village, and the son of the village chief of Raudoren is one of the survivors who witnessed them in the act. He runs back to his village but collapses as soon as he reaches there. He wakes up soon, warns his dad and others about the attack on Luchan, and tells them to be ready because the bandits might come here too. The village chief thinks that if they were going to attack, they would have already done it. Harold knows that it is true because the distance between the two villages is quite short. Everyone returns home thinking that they are safe for now, and Harold feels that he has become a coward because he has a place where he can go if everything goes wrong. The next morning, knights from Veronica's convoy reach the village. Their leader says that he is going to stay at the village and observe things for a while to ensure everyone's safety. He informs the villagers that while there were a lot of injured people in Luchan, fortunately, there was no casualty. Harold asks the knight why Meredith's family is stepping into this issue, and the knight only replies that they were also affected by the attack. Harold thinks that there is something weird about the attack if the bandits only injured people and didn't kill them. He goes to Helena for answers, and she doesn't reply till he talks about bread. When he tells her that he needs some information in exchange for bread, Helena makes a funny face. Harold asks her about the nobility in this world, but she tells him that asking questions isn't free and he must give her 10 loaves of bread for each question. Harold thinks she is a robber, but he has no choice but to prepare some bread for her. Helena follows him because she wants to see him cook. However, this time, Harold is not going to make bread but pancakes, since they are easy and delicious. Helena keeps on pestering him to hurry up, and he soon presents her with some pancakes. She is blown away by the taste and texture of the pancake and wipes her plate clean in no time. After that, she is ready to answer Harold's question. She tells him that the Emperor is the most powerful person in the Empire, but she absolutely hates him. The next highest noble position after that is that of Duke, and it is given to wizard families and people with royal blood. After that, there are counts, and even below them are barons, who buy their certificate of nobility, like the blue tick on Twitter. Harold is shocked to learn that the price of the blue tick in this world is 5,000 gold coins. He then asks Helena why she hates the Emperor, and she replies that he is the enemy of all elves and she wants to kill him with her own hands. She then tells Harold that from now on he can pay her in gold coins for his questions, but she takes it back when he asks if she doesn't want any more bread. 2 weeks later, Harold and Jake visit the Luchan village and find that it has been completely renovated. Jake says that it is all thanks to Mr. Panch, the noble who bought this area, as he paid for the renovation and even hired a healing wizard. Harold thinks that the noble is suspicious, and he thinks that he was involved in the attack before too. After that, he goes to sell his quota of black pepper and rests in an inn. He overhears some people talking about the bandits lurking in the area, and saying that they may have some ties with Veronica's family. Then one of the men claims that he will beat the bandits the next time they come. He talks about one bandit with a scar on his chin, and Harold is reminded of the guard he met on his previous visit to the village. After that, he returns home but finds Helena waiting for him to bake some bread for her. He says that they will harvest potatoes first today, and stays firm despite the elf girl's protest. He shows her how to harvest a potato and then jokes that it looks like her face. Helena doesn't take his words lightly and says that he will die single if he keeps saying those things. After that, Harold declares that today he won't cook bread but only potatoes, and Helena wants to see what he can do. Harold tells her that he will make potato pancakes today, but she doesn't like the idea. However, he tells her to help him and grate the potatoes. Well, Helena doesn't know how a grater works, so she smashes a potato against it, much to RMC's dismay. He tells Helena to sit down, and he does everything himself. He then presents a potato pancake to her, and while she originally doesn't seem interested, one bite changes her mood. A few days later, Veronica comes to the village and goes straight to Melody. She declares that this time she will stay here for 3 days, and that is why she needs her to cook delicious food for her. Just then, Harold comes there, and he wants to talk with Veronica in private. He wants a favor from her about the situation in Luchin. He first tells her that someone has started spreading fake rumors that her family is involved with the bandits, and then about the man with a scar on his chin. Veronica asks him what she is supposed to do even if she finds the man, and Harold tells her that he already has a plan for that. Veronica is still not convinced and tells him that he will be severely punished if her family's reputation is harmed because of him. However, as Harold takes her home and feeds her some delicious, buttery potatoes, she immediately changes her attitude. She promises to give Harold what he asked for and forgets anything about punishment. After that, she asks for the recipe for the potato dish, and as Harold starts revealing it, she calls him a naive fool. She tells him that he is a fool to reveal a trade secret so easily when he could sell it and become rich quickly. Veronica suggests that with the money he could buy the certificate of nobility, and Harold decides to accept her advice and refuses to share the recipe with her. After a few days, Veronica goes to meet her dad, but his guards refuse to let her meet him. So she shouts at the top of her voice, asking which idiot spread rumors about her family being involved with the bandits. Following that, she gets permission to enter his office, and she finds a man kneeling before him. She asks him to lift his face, but when he doesn't obey, she pulls him up by his hair and finds that he has a scar on his chin. Just like Harold said. Veronica then tells her dad that they need to talk in private, and they send everyone out. She asks him what he plans to do now, and her dad is not certain. He says that the man is one of his estate managers, and he did not expect him to be bought over by their rivals. He refuses to name anyone else involved in the case, so Veronica says that they should just torture the man until he reveals the identity of his buyer. A few days later, Harold gets called to the city where Veronica and her family live. She is at the gate to welcome him, and Harold almost freaks out as he sees her, looking like as a noble's daughter for the first time. She takes him to her office and asks what his plan is. Harold takes out a lie detector he got for cheap online and claims that it is a family heirloom that was made by a wizard with the power of electricity. Veronica is quite surprised by the fact that Harold possesses an artifact that can detect lies, and she wonders about his real identity. However, that is not important right now, and they take the lie detector to the culprit. Harold threatens him that if he lies, the power of thunder will tear his body from the inside, but he doesn't believe him. To prove his words, Harold asks him to say no in response to his question. He asks the man if Veronica likes Melody's food, and as he says no, he gets an electric shock from the lie detector. Wait, does technology like this really exist? Yeah, it does, I just checked it online. Harold takes this chance to scare the man even more, telling him that if he keeps on lying, even his children will be cursed by the god of thunder. The man begs his children to be spared and admits that he was doing just as he was told. Veronica's dad tells Harold that he will take charge of the interrogation now and sends him outside with his lie detector. Harold asks Veronica what he should do now, and she tells him that she has something special prepared for him, and she is sure he will like it a lot. She has prepared some delicious-looking sweets for Harold, and he indeed likes them. Veronica tells him to taste the sweets that are popular with nobles these days, and just as he takes a bite, Harold is horrified. Everything tastes like cosmetics, and he doesn't know that he is indeed eating soap and lotion. Veronica just looks at him with amusement and tells him to keep trying other sweets too, while she borrows his lie detector for a bit to discipline some kids. But he stops her. Later, Harold greets Veronica's dad, Count Meredith, who informs him that the man confirmed that he was working with the Panch family, and now the Emperor will punish them. He thanks Harold for his help and tells him to stay at their mansion for the night. The next morning, he wakes up to the view of the beautiful city. A servant is dedicated to providing him with the best services, but Harold feels it is too bothersome. Soon, he goes to have breakfast with Veronica, who says that he looks really good in noble clothes. After that, they start eating, and Harold finds that while everything tastes nice, the taste of black pepper is a bit strong. Veronica's mom complains that her daughter is a picky eater, and she replies that it is because she can't enjoy anyone's cooking after having tasted Melody's food. After that, Veronica takes Harold on a tour of the city. Meanwhile, her dad decides to thank Harold for helping them, and he feels that giving him money won't be enough. So he writes him a letter of recommendation that will serve as his ID and will even make him eligible to buy a nobility certificate. Later, Harold sits in a high-class carriage, drawn by 2 horses. He looks at 5,000 gold coins and a letter of recommendation. All of this is his reward for helping Meredith family, but he feels that it is too much. He wonders how to use all this money and thinks that he should use it to help the people of Raudoren first. After he goes back to the village, he helps Jake patch up some buildings in preparation for the winter. He has heard that some people die because of the cold in this region each year, but Jake assures him that their village is better off. He asks Harold about the winter in Korea, and he tells him about room heaters, but changes it to the fantasy setting. Jake is terrified as he hears about a room heater and thinks that people can get cooked because of it. Harold thinks that if he ever becomes a landlord, he will create a castle with central heating. In the meantime, he has some other plans. He asks Jake to bring him some pig feet to Melody's Inn, where he plans to prepare dinner for the villagers. Everyone wants to taste his cooking, and Harold tells them to wait outside while he prepares food. He cooks pig feet in beer and adds some spices he brought from home. After he is done cooking them, he prays to God to make them delicious. He should also pray that he doesn't unleash anything like the coronavirus on the villagers. Soon, he presents his creation to the villagers, who are amazed by the looks of the dish. They find that the taste is also great, and it doesn't seem like pig feet at all. Jake wants to know what kind of sauce was used to make it, and Harold says that it is his family's secret sauce. After that, he sees a man sitting alone and takes a seat next to him. The man introduces himself as Yorka, a fish merchant who is here to do business. Harold thinks that fishing in the winter is risky, and he admires Yorka for taking risks. He asks for his business card, and they make small talk while eating. A few days later, winter arrives, and Harold is shivering in his house even though he has lit up a fire. He thinks that he must endure the winter no matter what, when someone screams that a house is on fire. Harold goes outside and stands dumbfounded as he sees a house burning, and Jake tells him to quickly get some water. He joins the villagers in trying to put out the fire, but it is of no use. Suddenly, Helena comes there, and she calls the water spirits to help her. Everyone can only stare at her while she uses water magic and extinguishes the fire. Everyone is shocked about her true identity, but the village chief bows down before her as he thanks her. Everyone follows the chief, but Helena doesn't want to be with him any longer, so she goes back to her house. Harold wants to talk to her, so he goes to her home the next day. She doesn't want to talk to him, but Harold notices the dark circles under her eyes, and she reveals that magic is exhausting. She doesn't even care about the fact that her identity has been revealed, and tells Harold not to worry about her. She simply asks him to leave whatever type of bread he has brought, and as she receives it, she slams the door shut in his face. Inside her home, Helena looks at the egg cookies Harold gave her, and she thoroughly enjoys their taste. A few days later, Harold goes outside to find the village bustling with activity. Even Jake has worn new clothes, and he shows them off to Harold before giving him a vase. He tells him that they have a festival today, where they search the riverside for pretty stones to put in the vase. The number of stones in the vase is equal to one's age, and he wants Harold to take part in this festival too. At night, the villagers gather at the plaza where the chief does the festival rituals. He applies red paint to everyone's forehead and then tells them to put their stones in the vase and make a wish. Harold wishes that this year is more peaceful than the next. A few days later, he decides to go on an important trip and wonders what he should take with him. He thinks that he will take most of his money, and that reminds him of his conversation with Veronica about buying a nobility certificate. She told him that the port town of Pusing has an administrative office, so he can get a certificate there. Now, Harold looks at all the money he has and hopes that buying a certificate for 5,000 gold coins is worth it. He has around 8,000 gold coins right now, and he thinks that with this money, he could buy a house in the modern world too. However, he has always wanted to become a rich landlord, and now he has a way to do that. Later, Helena tells Harold that she wants to go to Pusing too if he is going there. She volunteers to be his escort, but he tells her that she is so frail that she will pass out on the way. In response, Helena makes a sword out of water and points it at Harold's throat. He is still not sure about taking her along, but Helena says that she wants to do something for Masa. She offers to use her magic for Harold for an entire year if he takes her along. After thinking for a while, Harold decides to take her as his guard. Helena has a condition that she must get at least one tasty loaf of bread each week, and Harold thinks that he must use his subspace pocket to store it. Doing that will put him at a loss since he won't be able to sell black pepper as much as before, so he plans to make the elf girl work hard enough to cover for that loss. Soon, they are ready to depart for Pusing, and even Mino joins them. He knows that Harold got the carriage from Veronica, and he wants to know how he got it, but he keeps that a secret. Mino then asks Harold if he is dating Helena, and while he nervously refuses the allegations, she starts laughing. She says it is a funny joke, and Harold retaliates by saying that he is not interested in her because she is not his type. However, he decides to try his luck and asks if he is her type, and she replies that she won't even look at him if he doesn't give her bread. Helena then thinks about her situation. She was a half-elf, because all pure-blooded elves have vanished from this world. Half-elves can only have one child, but since they are so long-lived, they are still surviving in this world. Helena has been hiding her identity from everyone, and it is the first time anyone has mistaken her for being in a relationship with someone else. On top of that, she is not an ordinary girl but the daughter of a duke family, and she thinks that she cannot have a relationship with a commoner like Harold. She is curious about him and asks him if he is a traveler, and where he plans to go next. Harold replies that he has no plans for that right now because he is going to be a feudal lord now. Helena gives him a sharp glare, saying that he thinks becoming a noble is just a joke. She tells him that even with the certificate, he will only become a baron, and getting promoted to a count will be a rare thing. She warns him that 90% of barons lose their titles because they can't pay the hefty taxes, but Harold assures her that he is going to earn a lot of money. Helena asks him how he will do that, and he replies that since he is the Wizard of Bread, he will make money by selling bread in the capital city, and his answer amazes her. Soon, their group takes a break, and Harold finds Helena returning quietly from the woods. He wonders what she was doing and finds that she has killed some wild dogs near the camp. Harold thinks that she killed them so that they wouldn't attack the camp and praises her for doing so. Soon, they come to the gate of Pusing City, and Harold decides to use the letter of recommendation from Veronica's dad to avoid paying the toll. Mino cannot believe that he has a recommendation letter from a count, which is very rare to get. He simply refuses to tell him how he got it but tells him about his purpose for visiting the city. Soon after that, Harold takes the letter of recommendation and the 5,000 gold coins to the admissions office. The officer there is satisfied with the money in the letter. He asks Harold about his surname, but he thinks that his original surname won't be a good fit for this world. So the man tells him to pick a surname from the list they have, and Harold decides to adopt the surname Bloom. With that, he signs the documents and gets the certificate of nobility. The officer then tells him that 3 years from now, he will be eligible to be promoted to be a count, but for that, he must be associated with an established noble family and pay a hefty sum of 50,000 gold coins. In the meantime, he must pay tax of 1,000 gold coins each year and learn how to be a noble from a count family. Harold doesn't plan to do anything right now, so he leaves for his inn, where Helena is waiting for him. He smugly tells her to address him properly since he is a noble now, and she reminds him that she is a wizard, so she is higher up in the hierarchy than him. She forces him to call her a wizard, and then tells him that she is hungry. Harold takes her to a good restaurant and orders seafood. He is excited to try them, but Helena is not. She wants to eat some bread or cake, and she tells Harold to have all the seafood for himself. However, he gives her a shrimp and tells her to at least try it out. As Veronica tastes the shrimp, she feels it is really delicious. After that, she calls a waitress and asks her why she is not giving them lemon water when they are eating food with a fishy smell. As the waitress leaves to get some lemon water, Helena claims that this place is unprofessional. She gets back to eating food again, and as she sees Harold struggle to eat a shrimp, she smiles to herself. After that, they go to the harbor, and Helena keeps on complaining that the ocean smells like fish. What else is supposed to smell like? However, as she sees the vast expanse of water in front of her eyes, she cannot stop staring at it. Harold decides to flex his stone skipping skills, but Helena outperforms him by using magic. After that, he goes to a construction guild and asks the man in charge of the guild the price to build a storeroom big enough for the entire village. The man says it will cost him about 50 gold coins in total, and Harold thinks that is quite reasonable. He also wants to know the cost of building a castle like the one owned by Veronica's family and learns that just the inner castle will be worth 50 grand. Harold gives up on the idea of building a castle for now. He then asks the mason for his card and informs him that he is a newly registered noble. The mason panics on hearing this and immediately becomes more polite and submissive. Harold doesn't really like seeing a man much older than him behave like that, but he still proceeds with the deal. He leaves the shop, but on the way, he finds two cute dogs. Harold can't resist playing with the two good boys and asks their owner about their breed. He learns that they are border collies, one of the best herding dogs, and decides not to adopt them immediately. Harold purchased a male and a female border collie to help herd the sheep in the village. The dogs continuously lick him, but as Harold turns back, he sees the disdainful look on Helena's face and recalls that she really hates animals. The next day, Harold is ready to leave for Raudoren with the mason and his team. He tells him that the people in his village don't know about him becoming a noble just yet, so he wants him to call him normally in front of them. Their group departs back to Raudoren, and Harold asks Helena about her experience with pucing. She had fun but is angry that Harold wasted his time on becoming a noble instead of sightseeing. He replies that he plans to travel a lot this year, and then Helena asks him about his deal with the Meredith family. He tells her that in a few weeks he will visit them to study how to be a noble, and she says she will join him too. With that, they return to Raudoren, and everyone gathers around to welcome Harold. He has brought some magical cold storage crates and expensive fish for the villagers, along with the two dogs. The village chief instantly becomes family with the dogs, while Jake comes up to Harold and asks him if he is really planning to leave the village. He is in tears as he says that he will miss him a bit, but not a lot, and that makes Harold upset. After that, he packs the things he will need for his stay at Veronica's home. To become a proper noble, he must be educated for 800 hours, and Harold thinks that it might take him about 3 to 4 months to do that. He thinks that opening up a second-dimensional gate in Veronica's home just for that is not worth it. He then thinks about Helena coming with him and recalls how she doesn't like being in populated cities, so he wonders if she will be fine. At the same time, she is visiting the grave of her nanny, Masa. She finally shows a sign of emotion as she says that Masa was a good mother and a good friend. She recalls the time when she learned that Masa was not her real mother but only her nanny. At that time, she threw a fit and demanded she be kicked out. But as she was crying later, it was Masa who approached to comfort her. They became close after that, and one day, when one of her stepmother's necklaces got stolen, her dad put the blame on Masa. Helena stood up for her and said that her nanny was innocent, and she believed that it was her evil stepmother who was behind everything. Apparently her dad was blinded by love, and he slapped his daughter for speaking against his wife. He ordered her to be imprisoned and Masa to be executed. But they somehow escaped the place. Now, Helena thanks Masa for bringing her out of that hellhole and says that she loved her. She regrets letting her die silently and not asking Harold for help when they first ate together. She thinks that he is a kind man who takes care of her, even though she is annoying. At first, Helena thought he was just a crazy man, but now she believes that he is a good and funny person, which is why she plans to stay with him and find out if he is really capable of becoming a duke. Later, Harold is at home, cooking some fried noodles. He is really excited to do it, and he breaks the noodles first before frying them and then adding the spice mix on top. This is his farewell gift to the villagers, and he makes packets for each house. As he relaxes after finishing the job, he gets melancholy when he realizes that he is really leaving. Later, he gives the fried noodles to everyone, and Jake comes running towards him. He gives him a tight hug as he asks him to visit the village sometimes. After that, the village chief thanked Harold for the 2 shepherd dogs and for constructing the basement storage. Harold says that is no big deal, and he requests the chief keep his house as it is while he is absent. With that, Harold leaves, promising the villagers that he will return someday. He gets on the carriage and starts riding it as he asks Helena to come out. He asks her why she did not say goodbye to the villagers, and she replies that if they saw her leaving with him, everyone would think that they were in a relationship, and she doesn't want that. Soon, they reach the gates of Veronica's castle, and Harold asks the guards to tell Veronica that Baron Harold Bloom has arrived. She soon comes running to welcome him, but before he can go inside, Harold wants to introduce her to his travel companion. Veronica is taken aback by seeing an elf, and Harold declares that she is Helena of the Silverwood family. Veronica almost curses that family right in front of Helena, but her butler drags her away in time. However, the elf girl knew what she was going to say about her family, and she does not like her already. Harold then greets Count Meredith, but the Count is more interested in talking with Helena. He greets her politely since she is from a duke's family, and Harold suddenly realizes that he has been messing with a noble much above his standard all this time. Now, he wonders if he will be fine with all the things he has said to her. Harold knows that since half-elves can have only one child, the position of heir to the Silverwood family belongs to Helena. She will inherit the title, the money, and the land, but such things are not even important to wizards. The most important thing for them is their bloodline. Right now, the Count tells Helena that her father passed away recently because of old age, so she is the Duke now. Helena immediately thinks of the evil leeches feeding off her family and thinks that they must be living luxuriously on the inheritance. She is furious, but then decides not to do anything right now. In the meantime, she requests that the Count let her stay here as long as Harold is here and also keep her identity a secret. The Count says he is happy to help, but just as Helena leaves, he claims that she is his lottery ticket. He asks his butler to bring all his sons here because he wants them to go after the Duke. Meanwhile, Veronica is throwing a fit in her room because the elf girl was not just a wizard but also a duke. However, when she hears from her maid that her dad has called all her brothers to him, she realizes what he is thinking. Her mood suddenly changes, and she decides to be good to Helena so that she can choose one of her brothers to marry. This way, Veronica hopes to avoid marrying into a wizard family herself. On the other hand, the Duke is demanding Harold prepare bread for her when he is super tired. But he has no option but to do as she says. He reaches Veronica and asks her to borrow the kitchen, but she says that he can't go there because that would mean that the kitchen staff did not prepare food good enough for him, and they will be punished for that. After that, she tells him that they have a sub-kitchen room and asks Harold if he would like to visit that instead. He takes up the offer, and Veronica stares at him with excitement as she asks him what he is going to cook this time. She even helps him get the ingredients, and Harold prepares meat and egg muffins. Veronica can't stop drooling, and Harold tells her to try, but leave enough pieces for Helena. Needless to say, Veronica is blown away by the taste of the meaty muffin, and Harold decides to take the rest of them to Helena. She replies that she will ask a servant to do that, and she calls another servant to take Harold to his room. He changes into some fresh clothes, and Veronica circles him as she says that he looks like a real noble now. Helena is already in the room too, and she is also dressed up as a noble. While Harold is taken aback to see her all dressed up, Veronica is not impressed. She immediately gets into a passive-aggressive power struggle with Helena, and Harold feels like he is going to get into trouble. Well, he is right, and almost instantly, Veronica remarks that he seems on friendly terms with Helena, so she wants him to be her friend too, but Helena doesn't seem to like the idea. After that, Harold goes to his lesson room and waits for his instructor to teach him the ways of a noble. As he waits alone, he recalls that it has been a year since he came to this world, and things have changed a lot for him in that time. He thinks that he will give it his all here, and if everything works out, he might not even need to return to the modern world. He even thinks of marrying a woman here and thinking about making this place his home instead. Soon, his instructor about noble etiquette comes there and introduces himself as Basset. His first lesson deals with eating manners. He asks the servants to lay down the silverware in front of Harold, and as he goes to check them, he has already made 3 mistakes. Basset says that he should have washed his hands before touching the silverware. He should not show any signs of being amazed by something, and he should not bow to look at something. Harold is about to curse him in the stuck-up society of nobles, and Basset counts that as his 4th mistake. Harold realizes that he is screwed, and after an hour of his lessons, he is exhausted physically, mentally, and spiritually. Just then, Veronica comes to the room, and she can't believe her eyes when she sees him crawling on the ground. He quickly collects himself and then asks her about her trip with Helena. She claims that it was fine, but Helena replies that she was too tired to enjoy it. The girls get into a fight again, and Harold stops them by asking them if they have ever tried creme brulee. They haven't even heard about it, and Harold explains that it is a simple dessert with sugar on top of custard cream. He plans to make some, and then asks Veronica if there are no pastry chefs in this kingdom. He learns that there are no specialists in this world when it comes to pastries and desserts. He then gets to work on his creme brulee. He creates a base for the dessert using whole eggs and uses vanilla extract to give it some flavor. As he tells them about vanilla, Veronica is impressed and asks him if there is anything that Harold does not know. Helena remarks that he is the wizard of bread, so such things are nothing to him. Hearing that Harold made bread for Helena makes Veronica jealous, and she boasts about the potato dish he cooked for her. They begin quarreling again and demand Harold cook something for them quickly. Harold first makes a custard cream, and Veronica thinks that it is quite delicious in itself. He wants to cool it down, and she asks her maid to bring some ice from the ice storage. Harold is amazed to hear about the ice storage and then uses the ice to cool down the custard cream. Meanwhile, he uses egg whites to make meringue cookies and challenges the 2 girls. He tells them to whip the egg whites using forks, and the one who makes it first wins. He knows what he is doing and uses the rivalry between the 2 girls to his advantage. Veronica uses all her strength to make the meringue, while Helena uses magic to help her. Veronica wins the competition, and then Harold takes the meringue and fills it in a piping bag. The girls also want to try making meringue cookies, and after making them all, Harold puts them in the oven. With that done, they move on to creme brulee and find that the custard has frozen, but Harold says it is still not ready. He puts some sugar on top of the custard and caramelizes it to finish the recipe, and Veronica can't stop drooling. They take the dessert to the dining room to get the best feeling out of it. Veronica finds herself in Wonderland after just taking one bite of the creme brulee, and she tells Harold that she should have hired him as her chef before he became a noble. After being shaken for a few minutes, Harold says that they should share the remaining custard with everyone else too. Meanwhile, Helena has been eating it silently, and Harold asks her if she doesn't like it. She only replies that it was not bad after clearing her bowl completely. Veronica then commands her maid to call their chef with the cookies Harold put him in charge of. The cookies look delicious, and Harold says that they will go very well with some tea. As Helena and Veronica pop a cookie in their mouths, they feel like forgetting their enmity for a while. Veronica is so happy that she orders the sub-kitchen to be given to Harold from now on and tells her maid to take care of any ingredient he may need. She even calls the chef to take note of the recipes, but that makes Harold realize that while he can learn to speak like one, he still doesn't know how to write. Soon, Veronica's parents also enjoy the creme brulee. As they are in the middle of eating, a servant comes there with news about his sons. He says that the oldest son has taken an interest in wine, so he is learning to make it in the southern regions, while the youngest son is in the imperial palace right now. However, the Count wants to know more about the fight between Veronica and Helena, even though it is not so serious right now. The servant tells him that the girls are becoming friends because of Harold, and together they ignore all sorts of manners. The Count is pleased to hear that they are not each other's enemies, since Veronica was the craziest one in their family. The next day, the two girls are waiting for Harold to finish his manners lessons. He runs to meet them and notices that Helena is wearing a dress he bought her before. She replies that the dress is comfortable, and the clothes in this place are too tight. Veronica tells her to just take off her belt and everything will be fine, much to the dismay of her maid. They take a tour of the city and come to the Meredith River, which is named after Veronica's family. Harold is amazed to hear this and thinks that if Helena grants him some land one day, he will name a city after him too. He then asks Veronica about the fish in the river, and she replies that there are barely any fish left now. She also tells him that lately they haven't been able to produce much in the fields as well, and now they are dependent on pastures. Harold hears about livestock, and he confirms with Veronica that people make cheese in this city. She tells him to look around the town by himself if he wants, because she is going to head back home now. It turns out that she just needed an excuse to ditch the carriage and go horseback riding with Helena. Harold then takes the carriage and goes to the area where people are making cheese. He sees a boy and calls him closer. He offers the boy a meringue cookie, and after giving him that bribe, he asks him about some carriages in front of them. The boy replies that they are transporting all the cheese to the landlord's storage. He then asks the boy more about the cheese-making process and finds some details about the steps they follow. After that, Harold creates Lassie, the Indian yogurt smoothie, and presents it to Veronica's family, telling them that it will help them solve their food problems. As they taste it, they find that it is creamy, sweet, and sour. Harold tells them that he heard that people here make ricotta cheese, so he just modified their recipe to make a yogurt smoothie. He then reveals that the people use lemons to make the ricotta cheese, but that generates a lot of waste in the form of lemons. This makes the land and the river acidic, making them less fertile. Harold claims that instead of cheese, they can make lassi without using lemons, and the fertility of their fields will be restored eventually. He is not certain about this plan just yet because making cheese is important too. However, Veronica likes the idea and suggests lowering the production of cheese while increasing its quality. That way, they can still earn money from the cheese and also make their fields function again. Veronica's mom thanks Harold for bringing a solution, and after hearing her language, he realizes where Veronica got her foul mouth from. Veronica's mom says that they will provide milk and cheese to the people for free while they can restore farming, and he realizes that the Meredith family is respected so much because of how generous they are. On the other hand, another noble family, named the Pete family, has heard that the Meredith family is holding a great trade fair this year. The head of the family dislikes the Meredith family because they have been interfering in the wool market, which falls under her jurisdiction. However, as she hears that a wizard is residing at the Meredith mansion, her mood changes a bit. One family member suggests that they should go to the trade fair to check if the rumors about the wizard are true, and then they can try to befriend the wizard for their benefit. Lady Pete says that if the wizard is not there, they will humiliate the Meredith family for spreading lies. In the Meredith household, Veronica has taken up the role of overseeing the preparations. She wants Harold's help too, and she goes on a walk with him to talk about the International Trade Fair. Veronica says that she has visited some other trade fairs when she was young but ended up in a bad mood whenever she went there because of other nobles. However, since their family is hosting it this time, she must do her best to prove that they are worthy of being acknowledged by the imperial family. She requests Harold to talk with Helena on her behalf, because having a wizard with them will shut up all the haters for good. Harold suggests Veronica talk with her personally, but she threatens him that she will ask the instructors to be extra rough with him from now on. Harold panics upon hearing this and thinks that only authentic Korean food can make him feel better. He decides to head back to Raudoren immediately to access his dimension gate. He reaches his apartment in Seoul after months and sheds a tear. After that, he goes to a pork restaurant and orders some fried pork belly with alcohol. Harold finally feels at home after he eats Korean food and enjoys it with a bottle of Korean alcohol. Just then, one of his co-workers from his last company comes to the restaurant too. They sit down to catch up, and the junior asks Harold why he isn't replying to his messages these days. He makes the excuse that he was on a trip to Europe, and his junior says that he is jealous. He remarks that the trashy manager quit the job, so everyone is happy in the company nowadays. Hearing about the progress of the company makes Harold feel a little conflicted. He realizes that he cannot tell the people of this world about the fantasy world, and he cannot tell the people there about the modern world. He feels lonely between the two lives he leads and then returns home to rest. Harold then thinks about the International Trade Fair and thinks that a lot of nobles will visit it. He wants to attract their attention and thinks that it is a chance too good to pass. He thinks that the best way for him to do that is by making the Meredith family more influential in the empire. He knows that they are famous in various fields already, and they have good command over the food and fashion markets. Harold thinks that if he can properly use their popularity, he will make them into a force to be reckoned with, and he will benefit from being close to them. The first thing that comes to his mind when thinking about influence is spices. He doesn't want to interfere in the black pepper trade of the Meredith family, and he thinks that red chili powder will be the best thing for him to take there. He decides to get working immediately because, more than anything, he wants to create kimchi in the fantasy world. A few days later, when Harold returns to Veronica's mansion, he finds her united with Helena in lecturing him. They think that he ran away because he wanted to get away from the lessons, and say that he won't become a proper noble like this. More than that, they are concerned that he ate Melody's food by himself and baked bread for himself. Harold tells them to calm down before remarking that they are both twinning their outfits. He runs away after distracting them, and he starts working on his master plan. He has bought a jar for kimchi and boxes for the red chili powder and baking powder. He then calls a servant and inquires if the Count is available right now. Harold then goes to meet the Count and says that he has more solutions to the problems caused by lemons. He claims that since the land is polluted by lemon juice, it will take a long time for it to recover naturally. He says that they can hasten the process if they use lime powder, and the Count is not certain if it will help. Harold assures him that it will work, but it is also a bit dangerous to handle. The Count knows it and decides to let some experts handle the matter. He then smiles as he asks Harold if he has any thoughts about the territory he plans to buy. Harold replies that he has been a noble only for a month, so he has not thought about it yet. The Count is pleased to hear that because he wants to suggest some land to Harold later. In the evening, Harold goes to hang out with his two girls again, and Veronica keeps on staring at him. She wants something that can crush the other nobles, and he asks her if there is any problem she is facing. Veronica says that everything is fine, but she needs something more impactful. Harold says that he has just the thing she needs and takes her to the sub-kitchen. She sees the ingredients and asks him if he plans to make an ice snack like they do here. She explains that they grind the ice and mix it with fruits and honey. It is not exactly rare or impressive, but Harold says that he is going to create something better than their ice snack. He declares that he will make gelato, but the girls don't know what it is. Harold tells them to watch him work. He first mixes the ingredients to create paste and then places them on ice. He adds salt to the ice to make it colder, and soon the gelato paste starts to freeze. Veronica can't believe it, and Helena tells her that Harold is indeed the wizard of bread. He then stirs and freezes the gelato again to improve its texture, and he then presents the finished product to the girls. Harold says that this is only a small sample, and they can mass produce it during the trade fair. For that, he wants a lot of ice and Helena's help. As he speaks, he finds the two girls shivering because of the dessert. They can't believe that something so delicious can exist in the world, and Harold asks Veronica if the nobles will like it. Both the girls believe that everyone will love it, and they quickly eat everything. Veronica gets a brain freeze from eating so quickly, and Helena remarks that while she is not fond of frozen food, this was good. They quarrel again, and then Harold interrupts them as he asks Veronica to get permission from her parents. To do that, she wants Harold to prepare the gelato for them too. Before going, she asks Helena if she has ever been to a trade fair, and she replies that she hasn't. Her father only took her stepmother and her son to such places. This dampens the mood, so Harold offers to bake some bread for Helena. Later, Harold calls the chef of the household to his room. He has heard that the chef has been stressed out because he needs to create a new recipe in time for the trade fair to start, but he hasn't been able to make much progress. Harold tells the chef that in his country, the baking art is highly refined, and even his mom was skilled in that. He offers to teach the chef some basic recipes as references so that he can develop something on his own. The chef is really grateful to hear that, and Harold teaches him how to make churros, butter cookies, and lemon and ginger tea. He thanks Harold for the recipes and promises to work hard. Soon after that, a servant comes to the room and tells Harold that some of the merchants he knows are in the town. Harold goes to visit them, and he finds Mino eagerly waiting for him. Mino has heard about him becoming a noble, and he wants to know more about it. Harold tells him to stay calm and takes him for a walk to talk. They talk about the international trade fair, and Mino says that his father is also going to participate in that. Harold needs his help, and he asks him to spread positive rumors about some things once he gets back to the capital. Mino is ready to help him, but he has a price too. He asks Harold to provide a good inn for them to stay at and a good location for their stall. Harold knows that getting those isn't easy, but he says that he will talk with Veronica about that. Mino then notices a fancy carriage behind them and wonders to whom it belongs. Harold also has no idea, but he soon finds out who is in the carriage, just as he reaches the gate of the mansion. A drunk man comes out of the carriage, exclaiming that Carl Meredith is back. Harold asks the chef about the man, and he learns that he is the eldest son of the count. He thinks that the man is a stupid drunkard and tells this to Veronica, who replies that Carl was just learning to make wine. She is not happy with her stupid brother for acting like an idiot, and Harold asks her about her relationship with him. Veronica says that they get along just fine, but she is more worried about their family's stability right now. Harold changes the topic and asks her for a favor, but Veronica says they should talk about it in her hideout. He tells her to reserve a good spot for a stall and a room in a hotel for a merchant close to him. Veronica asks what she gets out of this arrangement, and he replies that it will be beneficial for her family's honor if his plan works. She is grateful for that, but she also wants to know why he is so concerned about her family's honor. She tells Harold that if he gets too deeply involved with their family, the other nobles might outcast him just like they have done with them. Veronica wants Harold to use his talents to rise in the noble society by making connections, and she says that staying with the Meredith family is not his best bet. However, he is adamant that he wants to be closely associated with them, and Veronica threatens him with death if he tries to betray them later. Harold then asks Veronica if a wizarding family is coming to the trade fair too. He has heard rumors from the merchants, but he is certain that they were not talking about Helena. Hearing this flips Veronica's switch, and she immediately leaves to talk to her dad. A few days later, Harold hears Veronica's elder brother vomiting after drinking too much. It has been his daily routine, and Harold is furious about it. He wants him to get over wine when he gets an idea and heads to the sub-kitchen. He makes a honey and lemon drink, which is a good cure for hangovers, and sends it to the drunkard. The next day, Carl visits Harold as he is training with a swordsman. Harold gets distracted for a moment and gets a sharp hit on the head for not paying attention. The teacher lectures him before dismissing the class, and Harold finally gets to see Veronica's brother sober. They greet each other, and then Carl asks Harold if the honey lemon drink was his idea. He thanks him for the drink, and Harold advises him to drink in moderation. Carl says that he is stressed out because he is going to inherit the family wealth, but he is not talented enough for it. Harold is shocked to hear his reasons for drinking and tells him that he used to be addicted to alcohol once too. Carl is shocked to hear that and decides to talk over lunch. In the meantime, the Count learns that because of the news that a wizarding family is going to attend the trade fair, more nobles are coming. His butler reports that about 20 families have opened up a portal to cross the mountains to come to their city. There is only one wizard in whole of Ermin Empire who can open a portal. Opening a portal was hard and very expensive too, so nobles do it only when it is absolutely necessary. Now, Count Meredith is in tension because he knows that the rumors about a wizard coming to the trade fair are fake, and because of that they have more guests than ever. He is sure that the nobles plan to humiliate them if they don't find a noble, and wonders how can he deal with this situation. Meanwhile, Harold, Veronica and Helena are living life carefreely. Harold has got a Jenga tower made, but the girls don't find anything exciting about pulling wooden pieces out of a tower. He tells them to not judge the game before playing it, and suggests that this is an easy game that anyone can play. He plans to introduce this at the trade fair, because it will be popular among everyone. Before beginning their game, Harold declares that the loser will get a finger flick on the forehead. The game begins, and Veronica loses almost immediately and keeps on earning finger flicks to her forehead. She is furious that she can't win, and wants to get back at Helena for hitting her hard on purpose. Harold stops them from fighting when a butler comes there and takes him away. The Count had prepared a room for him in a hotel, and Harold likes it, thinking that he will have some freedom during the trade fair. He goes to the kitchen and decides to make kimchi stew for dinner. He prepares food just for himself when he hears a knocking on the door. Harold goes to check who is it and finds that it is Carl, who has come to visit him. He gifts Harold some cheese and wine before he notices the smell of food. He asks Carl to join him out of courtesy, and he takes up the offer. Carl is curious about the food that smells different, and Harold is nervous as he serves it to him. He likes the dish and can point out what ingredients he has used in it. Carl suggests that they should drink wine with the kimchi stew and rice, and Harold accepts his suggestion. He gets drunk quickly and then asks Carl about his spectacular taste buds. He replies that it is an useless ability for someone who needs to manage the family land. But Harold thinks that Carl doesn't even want to inherit it at all. He replies that he has no choice but to inherit the property as the eldest son. Harold asks Carl how he would live if he were not tied down by the responsibility, and he replies that he would like to raise some livestock on a small farm and live happily with his family. A few days later, the International Trade Fair starts. On the first day of the event, all noble families greet each other. On the second day, a big meal is arranged for all nobles, and on the third day, the castle is opened for civilians to take part in the festivities too. Harold is getting ready for the first day's events when he complains that the clothes are uncomfortable. His designated servant says that the color blue suits him, and then says that his schedule for today is to greet the nobles. Helena and Veronica are already waiting for him, and Harold goes ahead to join them. He finds them in the waiting room, and Veronica talks formally to him. Harold then asks Helena why she joined the celebration when she doesn't like it, and she replies that she talked about it with the Count. Both Veronica and Harold are surprised to hear that, and he is worried that it is going to be tough on Helena to reveal her true identity. He knows that wizard families are deeply associated with the imperial family, and if Helena reveals herself to the world, she will have no choice but to carry out her official duties as a duke. However, she seems to have thought about it, and she tells Harold to stop worrying. Then, a servant calls Veronica to welcome the guests, and Harold and Helena are left waiting in the room. Harold rushes to the window and sees a grand carriage coming to the gate, and Helena remarks that she has an even better carriage. He jokes that right now she has no money or even a house, and she is about to hit him with her water magic. After calming her down, he asks what she plans to do after revealing her identity, and Helena replies that she will go to the capital city and take back what is hers. Soon, the servants call them out too, and Harold goes first because Helena plans to make a late entry as the main guest. Harold finds a lot of guests and learns that Veronica is standing alone because the people she is close with are not here yet. He decides to give her some company and watches over the nobles, complaining about how hot the weather is. Just as they say this, a line of servants brings out the strawberry and vanilla gelato for them. Count Meredith makes his appearance as he greets the guests, and then tells them about the frozen dessert. Lady Pete is cautious about the new dish, but she instantly gives it full marks as she tastes it. She tries to hide her reaction but finds that everyone else really loved the dish, and they are asking for seconds too. They even ask about the ingredients, and Veronica's mom says that it is vanilla. She talks with the nobles who grow vanilla in their territory and thanks them for their produce. Seeing the great reactions of the people, Harold thinks that gelato will get famous pretty soon, and he will make a lot of money because of it. Veronica asks him if he is going to take help from his merchant friend to spread information about the gelato, and he affirms. He wants to spread rumors that it is a famous recipe from the Meredith family. However, he only plans to reveal the details of cream brulee and gatekeep the gelato recipe. Just then, Lady Pete starts her villain act. She says that the dish is fine, but to make it, they must have required a lot of ice. She wants to know if a wizard family really attended the trade fair, and everyone is on their edge because they know how nasty the fat Karen is. She asks Count Meredith to say something, and he says that they never advertised that a wizard was going to attend their trade fair, and the one who spread the rumors was a jobless loser. After hearing this, Lady Pete says that it was a waste to come to this place then, and other people also agree with her. However, Count Meredith says that even though the rumors were not spread by him, they were not false because they had a wizard with them. On his cue, Helena comes out to the venue, looking like a proper noble lady. Everyone is shocked to see the Duke of the Silverwood family, and Harold and Veronica cheer on seeing the fat Karen's reaction. Helena then coldly introduces herself to everyone and says that she will see them all at the dinner tomorrow. She ignores everyone and goes to Veronica, asking if she wants to join her on a walk. They chatter on their way, purposefully talking about Jenga and creme brulee to get the other nobles interested. And Harold is proud of their acting. He then wonders where Carl is, and he goes to his room. His servant replies that Carl is asleep, but as Harold goes to his room, he finds that he is just acting. He wakes him up, asking why he did not come to the meeting, and he timidly replies that no one really wants him to be there. He has no confidence in himself, so Harold drags him along to visit the market. Carl keeps on sighing in the market but decides to buy some ingredients to cook some food later. He even invites Harold over for dinner, and he realizes that Carl's talent is not in managing family businesses, but in cooking. He wants to support him and acknowledge his talent so that he can become more confident. The next day, Harold finds Veronica loudly knocking on his door as he dresses up. He lets her in, and she is excited to tell him about all the things that happened yesterday. She says that a lot of nobles came to her asking for recipes for creme brulee and gelato, and some of them were very polite and nice. She is like a kid while talking about that, and Harold finds her adorable. After that, she tells him that they will eat in the garden while the adults are going to eat in the banquet hall. In the garden, Gary, the son of Lady Pete, is sitting with some friends. Despite being too ugly himself, he has the nerve to judge Helena and Veronica, saying that they are unfit to marry him. He says that Helena is too old, even though she is a duke, while Veronica has red hair, which is considered bad luck. One of his friends says that Gary has an inferiority complex because he once lost to the second son of the Meredith family in a debate. He gets all prickly on hearing this and says that he wasn't in good condition at that time. He says that even though the second son is great, everyone knows that the first son, who will inherit the family name, is a useless loser. Just as he says that, the second son appears behind them and freaks the hell out of Gary. He challenges him to a debate anytime he feels like he is at his best, but he refuses to entertain him. Veronica makes a point to laugh at Gary as she walks past him. After that, her second brother, Mark, introduces himself as the second son of the Meredith family and thanks the guests for coming. He takes charge of the ceremony and says that the food will be brought in now. Veronica whispers to Harold, asking about the first course of the food that he suggested. Harold had suggested dumpling soup for starters, and now he is having doubts about whether it is good enough for the nobles. Luckily, Veronica loves his food, and that means that everyone likes it too. They are amazed to eat the dumplings filled with shrimp and pork and dipped in delicious soup. Carl remarks that Harold must have been the head chef of an emperor in his past life, and he replies that he is thinking about another Manhwa. As Harold and Carl are happily talking with each other, Gary comes there. He says that the food was good and credits it to Carl, who travels a lot while learning about food and drinks. However, that is just a build-up to insult him, and he asks him to stop learning to cook from lowly people and act more like a noble. Harold can't take anyone insulting his food, and he reveals that he was the one who thought of the dumplings and soup. Gary insults him too, saying that he is better suited to be a chef than a noble. That angers Carl, who stands up to confront Gary, but just then, their parents come there. Lady Pete takes her son's side, saying that he was just concerned about Carl, who doesn't study hard to become an heir, and instead wastes his time fooling around. Harold is disgusted at her twisted personality. Lady Pete then says that it was irresponsible to let a baron take care of the food for such an event. However, another noble lady comes there and asks her if she didn't like the food. She remarks that the food was good, and Lady Pete is just causing a scene because of her pride. The fat woman is furious at her, but she leaves the party before she can embarrass herself further. After she is gone, Harold tries to cheer Carl up, but finds that he has lost all confidence. He feels that Lady Pete and her son were right, and he really is useless. To cheer him up, Harold asks him to cook using the ingredients he brought yesterday, but he is not sure about it anymore. However, as Veronica hears this, she is suddenly fired up. She abruptly gets up and tells her dad that Carl wants to cook for the guests tomorrow to commemorate the successful trade fair. Carl panics, but seeing the intimidating aura of her sister and the reassuring gesture of Harold, he affirms when his father asks. Harold is glad and thinks that Carl can finally show his talent to everyone. However, he is still worried about him and goes to visit his room at night. Just as he enters his room, he smells a familiar scent of curry and rice and can't believe that Carl invented it in this world by himself. Carl tells Harold to wait for a while and then brings his food to him, which he has named Chicken Soup of the East. He wants Harold to judge his cooking before he can cook this dish for the guests at the trade fair. Harold takes a bite and finds that the soup really is curry. He remarks that he has eaten something like this before, but this is more tasty than it. His comment doesn't sit well with Carl, who is nervous that he did not invent the recipe. However, Harold assures him that he ate it on a different continent, so he should be fine. He then asks Carl what spices he used, and he tells him all the spices used in a curry, which are quite expensive here. He remarks that this dish will surely be liked by all nobles and says that if Carl wasn't born a noble, he would have been a great chef. He is happy to hear that and says that if he were a commoner, he would have opened a restaurant in the city by now. The next day, Carl greets the guests and presents his dish to them. The people are curious about the soup and bread combo, and Lady Pete says that the Meredith family doesn't know anything beyond that. However, when Carl says that they can bring something different for her if she doesn't like it, she immediately takes her words back. The guests have great reactions because they like the curry, and Harold thinks that it is enough to give Carl some confidence. However, he finds him looking gloomy before he addresses the crowd. He declares that he is aware of the fact that he is not the right person to inherit his family's name. That is why he declares that he is letting go of all the authority he has as the eldest son of the Meredith family, with immediate effect. Everyone is stunned to hear that, especially his family members. His mother asks him what he means, but his father accepts his decision. He says that his son accepted his shortcomings and decided to give up his privileges because of that. He acknowledges his character and pledges to support him. The guests are not sure that Carl will really leave his position, and they call him a coward. However, only some people think like that, while others say that Carl made a bold decision. They clap for him, and he thanks them with tears in his eyes. Later, Harold takes a walk with Veronica and asks what is going to happen to Carl now. She replies that their father wants to give him the title of baron and some land, but he refused that in favor of a small house and restaurant in the city. Veronica thinks that it is better this way, and she is less worried now that Mark is the heir. Harold feels that she is hiding something, but she quickly changes the topic and tells him that she has a surprise for him. Her surprise is the people from the Raudoren village who have come to meet Harold. Jake is dressed up like a gentleman, and he greets Harold as soon as he sees him, and Melody is behind him. Harold wonders how they are here, and Veronica replies that she invited them. Harold then tells them that he became a baron, and Jake is taken aback as he wonders how to address him now. He assures him that nothing has changed, so Jake hugs him tightly. Harold then asks him about the International Trade Fair, and he replies that it is awesome. He says that this place has many new things and new people, and he came here immediately after he got the invitation because he was getting bored in the village. Now that he has experienced the bustling city life, he doesn't want to go back to Raudoren. Harold says that since he is here, he wants to treat him and invites him over to his place. Jake can't believe his eyes when he sees Harold's lavish apartment. He remarks that the bedroom here is bigger than his entire house, and then Harold calls his designated butler, Lucas, and asks him to bring some gelato. Harold then asks Jake to try it, who finds it hard to understand the dessert because getting ice in Raudoren is next to impossible. He takes a bite and then completely freezes, making Harold wonder if anything is wrong. He reaches closer, only to find him crying because he never realized that food like this could exist. Harold is relieved that he likes it so much. After that, Jake asks Harold if he can travel with him from now on. He says that it is too sudden and asks him if something happened. But Jake says that he just realized that because he has never left the village, he has missed many things, like the gelato. Now he wants to go out in the world, meet new people, and see exciting things. He thinks that if he is with Harold, he can do all that and more. Jake says that he doesn't want to be a freeloader either. He is confident in his strength, and because of his time at the library, he is quite knowledgeable too. He requests Harold take him along, but he simply asks him if he even has permission from his parents. Lucas hears them talking, and he panics, thinking that Harold plans to replace him. He cries, saying that he will do anything he wants, but Harold calms him down. He wants to hire Jake too, and this does not sit well with Lucas. They stare at each other, till Harold asks Jake to ask his parents for permission, and he goes to do the dishes in the meantime. Soon, Harold gets down to rest, and thinks that it was a surprise when Jake suddenly volunteered to join him. He thinks it was too much surprise for one day, and decides to take some rest, but just then, he hears someone knocking at his door, and finds that Helena and Veronica are there. Veronica says that today is the last day of the celebration, so she wants to take a walk around the city. Harold replies that he is a little tired right now, but Veronica is in no mood to hear him out, and drags him along. They take a walk along the castle walls, and Veronica asks him how was his experience of the International Trade Fair. Harold replies that a lot of things happened, and he enjoyed most of them. He thanks Veronica and Helena for that, and they are dumbfounded to hear that. While the redhead pats his back violently for being so cheesy, Helena pretends that she didn't hear it. Veronica then says that they had a great time thanks to him, and Helena silently agrees. With that, this video ends. Tell us what you think about it in the comments. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our other videos.